Welcome to our webinar, The Economic Repercussions of COVID-19, an Automation Accelerant and Workforce Disruptor. Thanks for joining, and my name is Tom Taulli. In this webinar, we'll cover three main areas. First, there will be a look at the main catalysts from the COVID-19 pandemic. Next, we'll see how RPA will play a role in providing the best value in these challenging times. And then we'll look at how working remotely will change the industry. It may change the industry forever. Before getting started, though, with this webinar, I'll give a brief background of myself. First of all, I've been in the tech industry for well over 20 years. I started off on the programming side as a developer of programming languages like Visual Basic and C and so forth. I developed software for e-learning and different other web applications as well. I founded several companies, some of which were sold to public companies, and I've raised venture capital for these companies. But along the way, while pursuing my entrepreneurial efforts, I've been a writer. I've written for various publications, but the main one has been Forbes.com. I'm currently a columnist where I write a post once or twice a week on topics like artificial intelligence and robotic process automation. And I've also written several books. The latest one is the Robotic Process Automation Handbook, which is a soup to nuts guide for implementation, setting up your COE, and all the other things that you really need to get started and manage and deploy and be successful with RPA. So with all that, now let's get started with the webinar. Okay, the first topic which we will cover in this webinar is about RPA adoption. Now, in the current environment, there will certainly be lots of dynamism and unpredictability. I mean, uncertainty is primarily the main constant that we must deal with. So it is essentially the fog of war when it comes to this environment, because this is unprecedented. The last time we've had a global outbreak was in 1918. And, our infrastructure, our global infrastructure is certainly being tested. And we're doing the best we can, but mistakes are obviously being made, but there's a lot of progress and a lot of innovation. But it's in this environment that companies must, a lot of them, find ways to survive, but also make sure that they're on track with their digital efforts and their transformations that they're undergoing. So when it comes to certain industries, though, say hotels or restaurants, I mean, the top of mind is survivability, so I can't imagine there's much in the way of a lot of attention right now to digital efforts, and that's to be expected, and it is the right way to go, I would say. And I have talked to different software vendors and software consulting firms, and it's been pretty clear that some industries are just focused on finding ways to cut their costs and make sure they get through this and survive. But talking to these vendors, these software vendors and these consultants, there are other industries that are seeing tremendous amounts of growth. The grocery industry is an example of this. They're seeing huge volumes of revenues. We've already seen that with some of the earnings reports that have come out. People are at home and they, are not going out to eat. So they're going to the grocery stores to get their food. We're seeing examples of scalability, say with Netflix and so forth. So there are other industries that are going through spurts of growth. And I've talked to, today actually, a company that is a consultant that develops e-commerce websites, and she told me her business has been stronger than ever because a lot of companies have known that they want to go e-commerce and go that route, but there's always something else to do. But given what's happened and that they can't do business in the brick and mortar way, at least probably for the next few months, they realize they need to go online and they need to go the e-commerce route. So when it comes to digital transformation, when it comes to these ways of looking at implementing software and new technologies, it's a mixed picture right now, but I do think long term, what we come out of this is we're going to see companies that realize, a lot more companies realize that they need to go digital, they need to transform their businesses, and it needs to be done now. So I think that's a big takeaway here. Now, what does this all mean for RPA? So, I would look at it this way. I think this technology is ideal for scaling up when there is little time to do so. I mean, we're seeing examples of Walmart hiring thousands and tens of thousands of workers in a very short period of time. But you can't do that quickly. I mean, it just, they're going to try. So RPA can be a way to help scale for these sudden spikes in activity and volume. And it can do that on a 24/7 basis. What this will mean is that it will relieve some of the pressures to hire large numbers of people, which will add to the cost. And you don't want to hire a lot of people and then, unhire them and essentially engage in more layoffs. So this technology can be a good temporary stopgap. So, it's a great way to balance what is required. But I also think that there's something else that is at play here and another catalyst, and that is we do live in a fragile world, and we will see bankruptcies. We will see, I personally think, in the software area, we will see quite a bit of consolidation, if not bankruptcies, of tech companies, tech vendors, and I also think this will be the case in RPA. There are over 70 RPA vendors on the market, and I just can't imagine all of them being able to survive. Many of them have to rely on venture capital, and venture capital is drying up, and it's going to probably dry up for quite a while. And it's going to be tough to also get new business in this environment, because I think that in times of uncertainty, buyers of software look to trusted sources. They look to bigger companies. They want broader solutions. They want to know that there's a strong balance sheet and that company will be there for the long term. So companies like Blue Prism, companies like UiPath, Automation Anywhere, they're in very good positions. They have large customer bases. They have broad solutions. And during the time when there was a lot of money being raised, they were out there aggressively raising money. Not to say we're going to see all of the other companies go bankrupt, but it will be tough for a lot of them. And so I think that will be another trend here, is essentially consolidation and rationalization of the RPA market. And I think that was something that was going to happen anyway, but I think it'll probably be accelerated because of what we're seeing with the global economy. And I also do think that we're going to see companies like larger players such as Oracle, such as IBM, who really or SAP, who wanted to get more aggressive in the RPA market. They may see this as an opportunity for the consolidation and to buy maybe some of these smaller players as a way to get a bigger foothold into this industry. With the COVID-19 pandemic, we've already seen RPA companies step up and help out. And this is very encouraging, because I think RPA can be a helpful solution in combating this horrible virus. So what is being done? Well, let's take a look at one example, and that is UiPath. The company has launched a pro bono automation project with Mater Hospital to free up nurses' time. Basically, with UiPath, it's possible to disseminate patient test results in just minutes. The estimate is for 936 hours saved per year. Keep in mind that the nurses spend close to 30% of their time on administrative tasks. In other words, they just don't have as much time for patients. And in this environment right now, patient time is absolutely critical. So with RPA, we could see, given this pandemic, one of the silver linings of this pandemic, the transformation of the healthcare industry. And RPA will be a big part of that, because RPA excels when it comes to rule-based work and activities. Okay, so going beyond how RPA could help directly COVID-19, let's look at how RPA is helping companies deal with the impact that this is having on their customers in terms of their overall businesses, in terms of how they deal with their own customers. Okay, so in other words, we're going to look at the internal aspects to it, and also just even the changes in regulation that we've seen as Congress has passed new laws. Okay, so I mean, when you think about this, all of a sudden we have to deal with sick days, sick pay, and paid leave policies because of COVID. In a typical environment, we'd have more time to deal with that and roll out those requirements to the workforce and how to explain that. But we don't have that kind of time right now. We have to act a lot quicker. The good news is RPA can help with this type of compliance and help of putting these rules in place to help companies deal with them as best as possible and as quick as possible. But there are other ways that RPA is helping out. So let's first look at front office and call center. So in challenging times, the customer contact center is absolutely critical because of the spikes in call volume. With RPA, you can free up frontline agents so they can spend more time resolving tougher issues. And believe me, obviously, there's a lot of tougher issues right now. And this approach can be a huge game changer for a company because, when you're there for the customer, when the customer needs you, and you can step up and provide that service in a great way, people will definitely remember that. And I think RPA is already playing a big role for that. Now let's look at the back office, okay? Unattended bots will be absolutely essential. They will handle the repetitive processes that you'll see, such as handling invoices that come in or how to deal with payables and all the kinds of innards of the company that run on a day-to-day basis. But by using RPA and automating this and maybe even using some of the artificial intelligence, what we have is less risk to the employee because the employee doesn't have to go back to the office and handle some of this and handle some of the processes to make sure things are getting done. An unattended bot can do that instead. Now, I think there are some longer term impacts on RPA as well. Okay, I think one is that companies, because of the stress that they're going under, I think what will happen is executives, at least for the next few years, will be much more focused on the bottom line in terms of driving efficiencies, improving their processes, and looking to just optimize things in general. I think this is what happens anytime there's big stress and devastation with the economy. And I think that means that RPA will be a top-of-mind consideration for companies because it will allow for these types of capabilities and these types of outcomes in a faster way because we've already seen that been done over the past few years with a lot of companies who have implemented RPA. So I do think this is going to be a big help in dealing with a major trend that we will see in the next few years as CEOs really get focused on discipline in their organization to make sure that if another black swan, hopefully it never does, but if there is another black swan, they will be ready for it. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, there has been an explosion of demand for web conferencing and collaboration tools such as from Zoom and Microsoft Teams. Businesses are scrambling to figure out how to work remotely. But I don't think this will be a temporary trend. I don't think this is something that will just be here for a few months. I believe that companies will realize the benefits of remote work, especially the lower rent costs. I also think that there's much more ability for innovation and for bringing in different types of skill sets into an organization through remote work. And I do think that employees overall could be more productive if it's managed right on a sustainable basis. And I do think that the less time that they're commuting, the less time they're spending in a car to go to and from work, the better. Now, I don't think this will mean that we'll have completely remote work. There's certainly lots of value in having people getting together and working together. But I do think in general, I would not be surprised, and I've also talked to some businesses where this discussion has already occurred, that they're thinking, we've spent a couple weeks with remote working. It's done fairly well. We've had some hiccups, but it's done fairly well. So why are we spending all this money on rent? Do we have to have this large of an office? So I do think that is going to be a big consideration. And what that means, at least in my opinion, is that remote work is probably a secular trend, and it will certainly be a big impact on our RPA. First of all, there will need to be rethinking of current processes. RPA, when done within a department where employees are there for the most part, is going to be a lot different than when someone's working out of their bedroom. So you're going to have to be more disciplined. You're going to have to do more planning and think about some of the second order, third order consequences that may occur when you're creating bots. Just at a minimum, you're going to have to think about security. Much more about security. You're going to have to think about some of these issues in a more forceful and consequential way. So I do think, the rethinking of these processes will be top of mind when it comes to how the workforce changes and becomes more remote. To give an example, there's a company called Appian, which is a business process management company, a BPM company that also has an RPA side to their business. And basically what they've done is look at ways to better manage this new reality for RPA. What they've done, what has been important to them is by being in the cloud, it's much easier to provide for remote operations that are more seamless because everything is centralized, the data is centralized. Put it all in one place, and it does make it easier. Appian has also made it possible to use their technology to go to a customer, and if they have a legacy on-premise RPA system, they can handle that in a remote way. So if a bot crashes, Appian can deal with that without an employee having to go to the company's office and figure it out. Appian has also developed what is known as the robotic workforce manager that can reroute the work to another bot or escalate it to a human workflow and assist in completing the task. So, and this has just been done in a few weeks. I can't imagine what's going to be done in the next few months or the next few years. And then, of course, it's not going to just be Appian. It's going to be all these other companies that will have to scramble and have to rethink in how they build their software. But those companies that have more of a cloud approach with centralized data, they will be in a great position to move this ahead as opposed to some other companies. But technology is not just the only thing. Humans will have to be obviously very much more in the loop, and there must be more of a focus on management. So the center of excellence will be even more important in remote work. There will have to be ongoing training, monitoring, and provisioning, helping with the deployment. Basically, you should have even stronger procedures in place to avoid the bot sprawl that would, to me, seem to be inevitable when you have remote working as a bigger part of your organization. Okay, as you can see, we have covered quite a bit in this webinar, even though it has been a relatively short webinar. And the main things that we have covered, and we can't cover everything because obviously there's a lot we don't know. But there's some things that I think so far that we can see that are starting to emerge, and that is some of the major trends, whether it be for remote working, or the need to handle more automation when it comes to dealing with spikes in volume, which may happen when we have economic dislocations. And then also just look at some of the different ways that RPA has provided value, has provided added value in this very tough environment. So All in all, I do think it's very encouraging what we've seen so far. I suspect we'll see quite a bit of innovation, new features, changes, lots of changes in this marketplace that to me is good news for customers, and that's what it's all about. So that's the end of our webinar. I'm glad you could attend. It's been great to have everyone on this call. And if anyone does have questions, feel free to contact me. And more importantly, in this world that we live in right now, and hopefully things will get back to normal very fast, stay healthy.